The biggest limitation of generative AI is that it's not human. And I only mean that slightly sarcastically because a lot of the limitations that we see with generative AI are when we ask AI to perform things that actual human beings should be able to do better and can do better. However, when we talk about limitations of generative AI, one of the things we talk about the most is the idea of the factual inaccuracies in the output. Because these large language models are probabilistic text generators and not fact databases, there is a likelihood that they are going to generate plausible sounding false information, get historical facts wrong, or even invent non existent scholarly citations and links to sources. Another key limitation of generative AI is that it lacks common sense and real world understanding. Again, because it's not human, it cannot understand the world in the human sense, and so it often produces illogical or nonsensical results, especially related to spatial relations, cause and effect, and everyday logic. This can be things like prompting for a chemistry lab experiment instructions and have it give you lots of things that are incredibly unsafe to do in a chemistry lab, or even requesting interior design advice based on a floor plan of your dorm room, and it will give you weirdly scaled furniture that won't work in the real world because it doesn't understand. Another big limitation of generative AI is the presence of data bias and the representation gaps. Now, remember that AI is inherently a human technology, meaning that the training data set is selected by humans and it's programmed by humans, humans prompt it, and humans review the output. GenAI output can reflect the patterns, the prejudices, and the systemic gaps present in their training data sets. So if it's missing from the data, it's not going to show up in the output. And that the performance and the accuracy that you'll get in your output is inherently limited by the quality and the diversity of that data. So in each part of the process, if it doesn't include or it purposefully excludes something, you're not going to get that in the output. Last but not least is the fact that generative AI lacks social skills and context. It cannot interpret sarcasm, understand cultural norms, understand human emotional nuance. It is not human. It cannot think or it cannot feel. A key limitation of this is using generative AI for personal guidance when you are feeling stressed out or you are feeling sad. There's a lot of concern around using generative AI as a mental health support, especially when you are in times of crisis. And that is a situation where, and there are a number of resources that you can talk to that are real humans, that are a much more effective way to get that personal guidance than relying on a generative AI tool because of all of those limitations.